For more now on the latest phase in Russia's invasion of its neighbour, we can cross to our correspondent in central Ukraine, Gulliver Cragg. Gulliver, what at this point do we know about the nature of the beefed-up Russian offensive in the Donbas region?
Well, the Russians have succeeded in taking so far in the Donbas region since the invasion on the 24th of February only small amounts of territory, really, apart from the northeastern part of Luhansk Oblast, Luhansk region, which is relatively sparsely populated. The fighting now has been concentrated mainly around four towns, Popasna, which is in the center south, if you like, of Luhansk region, and Rubizhne and Krymina, which are just to the northwest of Severodonetsk, which is the largest Ukrainian-controlled city in the Luhansk region. That's clearly a key target to try to take Severodonetsk. Reports yesterday evening were that the Russians had managed to take control of Krymina, or at least the main part of it, but they hadn't managed to take Rubizhne. And there seems to be an attempt to have a sort of pincer movement coming up from the fourth area where there is intense fighting, which is Marinka and other areas just outside of the Russian-backed separatist stronghold of Donetsk, that they seem to be trying to push north from there and then sort of south from the Severodonetsk-Rubizhne area and try to encircle Ukrainian forces who are in control of Slavyansk and Kramatorsk, which are two of the largest cities in Donetsk region. The Russian forces are still quite far away from those two cities, but all of these places have been subjected to intense artillery bombardment now for weeks, actually, but it intensified even more yesterday evening due, according to various reports. US experts say that there are 76 Russian battalion tactical groups fighting basically for this offensive in the Donbass, 11 of which were deployed only in recent days, and that there are 22 more just to the north of the border. Now, some of these groups are battalion tactical groups that were fighting in the north of Ukraine, in Kiev region and in Chernihiv region, suffered very severe losses there, and there's a big question as to how much they're going to be able to be re-equipped, redeployed, get their morale back up and be made combat ready again. Lots of military experts are saying that they don't think that they're going to be able to muster that much of a fighting force out of these units that suffered those defeats in Kiev and Chernihiv regions. But that's really the question now as to how battle-ready these Russian units are going to be. And then the other place I didn't mention yet, of course, is Mariupol, which part of which, anyway, mainly, I think, just the Azov steelworks where Ukrainian forces are holed up is still under Ukrainian hands. So we can't say that Mariupol has yet fallen to the Russian forces. And a lot of their military resources are still being tied up in this battle for the southern port city of Mariupol. That's clearly a Ukrainian tactic to diminish the firepower, if you like, of the Russian offensive on Donbass. Meanwhile, the Russians are trying to diminish the Ukrainians' firepower with these targeted attacks on various, what they deem to be military targets elsewhere in the country, which I think is what this attack on the western city of Lviv yesterday was all about.
Gulliver, you mentioned just their morale. What is Ukrainian morale like now that that the country is facing a renewed onslaught in the east of the country, as you said, but also across the country?
Well, you know, on the one hand, Ukrainian morale is high because they managed to force the Russian troops out of Kiev and Chernihiv regions, and also in particular because of this sinking of the Moskva, the flagship of the Russian Black Sea Fleet, on the 14th of April. Yesterday in Kiev, there were queues around the block on Maidan Square outside the central post office of people trying to buy commemorative stamps issued to commemorate the sinking of the ship. Even here in this village, I was greeted by a 92-year-old lady who I know here when I arrived yesterday, who was drinking a cup of tea out of a commemorative cup commemorating the sinking of this Russian ship. And that also does seem to have had some effects in the sea in terms of the Russian Navy's withdrawal. Ukrainian military spokespeople say that the Russian ships have withdrawn by 200 kilometers from the Ukrainian coast. Of course, they don't want to have any other ships sunk. And so from that point of view, the Ukrainians' morale is high. But on the other hand, Volodymyr Zelenskiy, the president's repeated requests for more weapons that are being repeated by other Ukrainian officials, show that they are worried that they aren't getting enough ammunition ammunition and enough weapons fast enough from their Western allies, and they very much want the deliveries of weapons to speed up. They're making these very public announcements. On the other hand, these very public requests. On the other hand, of course, the supply of weapons has to be kept as secret as possible, because the Russians have made it abundantly clear that one of their key aims is to destroy weapons that are being supplied to Ukraine by Ukraine's allies as they arrive and before they can be deployed to the front lines in the Donbas.
Gulliver Cragg reporting there from central Ukraine. Thank you very much.